but I truly believe that the next step is going to be through education, giving people the tools, giving people the positive coping strategies. Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Mind Matters Show. My name's Dan Hunt. I want to thank you all. Hope you enjoyed the last episode. Really looking forward to this episode. We have a special guest on today, and I think it's going to be a really powerful episode of the Mind Matters Show. So please sit back and enjoy. We have a guest today, Angela Grieve. She's the mother of Regan Grieve, an NYC up-and-coming rugby league player. He played Australian schoolboys. He was the captain of the under-16s and 18s Queensland sides, and he was also playing under-20s or NYC with the North Queensland Cowboys. Sadly, he took his own life 26th of January 2015, and it was a beautiful young man, 190 centimetres tall, 107 kilos, and he was just a really happy kid. So I just want to welcome Angela. Thank you very much for giving up your time, and I guess talking about this. I know how hard it is going to be for you, but as I keep saying, the power of story is going to be the catalyst for change in this space, and it's a credit to you that you're using Regan's story, your experiences, as a positive to try and help other people. Mm-hmm. So just tell us a little bit about Regan and what he was like growing up, and just a bit of his journey.
Yeah. So Regan was a rat bag.
Most teenagers are, aren't they?
Yeah, he was. He was a rat bag. Growing up, he was, always outside. He was, he wasn't one to sit inside. He was always running around outside and skinning knees and falling over and, worrying.
Boy's boy.
Yeah, being a boy. And, but gorgeous, beautiful boy, and loved his footy. Absolutely loved his footy. Grew quickly, and
how was the food bill? Because he was a big young man.
Yeah, no, he did. He could eat. He could definitely eat. It was, there was always food in the fridge with him. So yeah. And
with his footy growing up, like obviously, as I said before, he made those Australian sides, the Queensland sides. So obviously, he showed a lot of talent. As a young player.
He did. He was picked up at 14 by the Cowboys, and but his greatest attribute with footy was that he loved it. And it was probably at 14 that he started to blossom, and then 15s, he really came into his own in the game, but he just loved it.
Because I read an article that I think he got interviewed, and he said he loved the camera, but he said about loving rugby league, I think he said what would it be like if I was coaching?
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yes.
So not many kids look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, he did. That was, he wrote that before he went on to, it was the day of the State of Origin, when he was captaining the 18 side, and he wrote that. Yeah. And we actually used that at his funeral, because he said, he would sit back. He sat back that day and he thought, why do we do this? We go out, we get bashed, it's a physical game, it's, you're under scrutiny, people are, he said, would I be better off, sitting back and being a coach? And
you get all the same, you're in on it, you get all that, but you're not sitting here with injuries galore like I am. Yeah. But no, we wouldn't change anything for the world. But what was he like amongst his peers and friends and stuff like that? From what you said, he had a really good group of mates.
Really good group of mates. He was just a really popular kid. He was, funny. He was the life of the party. He had so many mates, and because he'd moved to Townsville, he had mates in Townsville, mates in Mackay, and then with making those representative teams, had made mates, sort of all over the place. But really popular, and
Was it? I guess I know what the rugby league roller coasters are like. Especially as a young man, you're striving to make a name for yourself. What was it like being a mother, watching your son? Obviously, he made those teams, but not make the teams. Worry about form, dealing with relationships with girls, school. What was that like being a mother?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to steer them, because I think he was 18 when he passed away, and of course, leading up to that with school, he was very academic. He wanted to study dentistry when he left school. Okay. He everything he did 100%.
Yep.
And so trying to navigate him and calm him could be difficult
Yeah.
because, of course, they want everything.
Yeah.
And so, that could be difficult
Okay.
with him.
So just obviously it's going to be tough talking about this, but leading, like when it happened and then looking back, was there, because it leaves so many unanswered questions for yourself, was there any red flags, or was there just any signs or symptoms now that you look back and that you probably are more educated on it?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think they were. Regan was a very, like I said, he was a life of the party. He was always on. He was a great mate. He was a great, he took his footy really seriously, and he took his being a captain very seriously. They were his boys, and he was, he could be quite intense in that way.
So did he put that pressure and responsibility on himself?
Always. He put more pressure on himself than anyone else ever could have, because I think he thought, I have to live up to this.
Yeah.
And these are my boys, and I have to look after them, and I have to be,
Yeah.
a good role model, because, that's my job.
Yeah.
So he definitely put a lot of pressure on himself.
Okay. And in doing that, as a young man, even back then, did you know anything around mental, like even before it happened, around mental health, mental illness? Suicide probably wasn't even something that was in your vocabulary.
No, not at all.
So how much of a shock was it when the whole thing happened?
Yeah, it was a massive shock.
And
not only to me, it was a massive shock to everyone. I think the phrase I heard most, when Regan passed away was, "Oh, not Regan." Because Regan was that kid who was, there for everyone. He was the life of the party.
Yeah.
He was that kid, and everyone said, "Oh, not Regan."
Yeah.
He did a very good job at masking, what was going on with him.
And this is the thing in the space. Like, you use Robin Williams, for example. He was a comedian. He made people laugh for a living.
Exactly.
But he wore that mask.
Yep.
And this is what I keep trying to get out to people. Mental illness doesn't discriminate.
No.
You can be a young man that's a captain, that's making Australian sides, the life of the party, happy as, but inside something just wasn't right.
That's right.
And he was wearing that mask because he had all those expectations on himself.
Yep.
And responsibilities. And so what were if you do know, or you probably may not know, some contributing factors you think that got to it?
I think there were many things. I think, people ask questions and want to know why. People, feel they have to know why this happened, why. And I don't think there's one answer. I think there's many, many things that contribute to this. And I think, injury was a big one with Regan. He, sustained an injury at the National Carnival.
Okay.
Yep.
What was it?
He had an ankle injury.
Yep.
He sustained that at the National Carnival, played 2 games, but was still chosen for Australia. He went to the Cowboys and said, this just isn't right. It's not getting better. He ended up having surgery, which ruled him out of going away with the Australian team, which he was devastated at that. So I think that was a contributing factor. He was very close with his executive principal at school, who had been diagnosed with a brain tumour. He had sat at hospital with him all night, the night he was diagnosed, and they were very, very close. It was terminal.
Is he still with us?
No, he passed away. Regan passed away in the January, and he passed away in the May after Regan. So, I think there were lots of contributing factors. It definitely wasn't one thing, but I just think it was, putting pressure on himself. I think trying to deal with all of these things. I think the injury was a big factor. I think the fact that he wanted to do so well at school as well, and playing footy, you're away a lot, you're not at school as much as a lot of the other kids are. He was worried about his results. I think all of those things.
And it's probably a rhetorical question, but what was the ripple effect, the impact on yourself, the family, the team, the Cowboys, I guess the community? Because I remember I come up for an event after his passing, after his funeral, and that was actually one of the first events I ever spoke at in that mental health space. So the impact, how devastating was it?
incredible. It's, not only to us as a family and to me losing he was my baby. We were very close. So the impact on me, of course, is massive. On our family is massive. But then when you see the ripple effect through the community, his mates, his coaches, his teachers, all of those people, that losing one person can, the effect that it can have on all of those people is amazing. And it's been 2 years now and they're still affected, and he is still talked about so often. And you think, if that, we talk about, if one person hears you and it can make an impact on them.
Yeah.
And, Regan's my one person. If it hadn't had an impact on him,
yeah,
and this hadn't happened, look at the
ripple effect that would have had. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's an issue in society. Suicide's the leading cause of death of individuals aged 15 to 44 years old. And I remember you saying to me, we've had many phone calls, but every time those statistics come out, a lot of people just read them as numbers on a page, and it's not that they're dismissed, but you said to me, you go, every time I read those statistics, they're not just numbers on a page to me. My son is one of those numbers. Mm-hmm. And that really, I take it seriously and know how impactful it is, but that really hit home with me.
Yeah.
And that must be tough for you to hear those statistics and hear that.
It is. And when they came out, I didn't realise how it would affect me. But when they came out and they're on there pretty graphic and there's the numbers and it's all, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, if you take one number from that massive number, that's my son. And that's amazing, because every number is somebody's
loved one.
Someone.
Yeah.
So.
And in rugby league in particular, a lot of players have taken their own life. You look at the Dan Vickerman story.
Yeah.
He was actually going to speak at a transition conference, and once again he was obviously wearing that mask. He had his struggles, but he was an educated man, and he still struggled and took his own life. And it just doesn't discriminate.
No.
But no one should ever go through what you've been through and what you're going through. But what's been, I guess, a help in helping you get through this, or a coping strategy? Because I don't think you ever get over something like this, but I think you learn to manage.
Yeah, you're right. This is something that, this is my everyday now. My life is changed forever now because I lost my child. But having amazing people in my life, I have incredible friends and, incredible people around me who are just so supportive and just let me be me, which is important. But talking about it is so healing. Knowing the relationship I had with Regan and how close we were, and being so grateful for that, that's what helps me.
So it's this perception. I'm big on perception and focus, and you've had probably the most horrific thing happen, but you've still got the ability to change your perception around that. You're grateful for those 18 years that you had Regan.
Definitely.
You're grateful for what you had with him, and that is something that I don't. It's a credit that you can do that. And I remember we were talking off camera, and you said, when you approached me, that you want to do this because Regan didn't die in vain. You want to help that one person, whoever it may be. And how did you? Was there a process to get into that headspace, or did it just happen, or you feel like you didn't have any other choice? That was.
I feel like I had no choice. I feel that this is not something you can ever imagine. This is not something you ever expect, or that you know how to cope with. You just do the best you can every day. And so when I lost Regan, I didn't have a choice. This is just something that I had to do, because I don't want anyone to feel like this. I don't want anyone to have to go through this. And so, I've heard you say we can't save the world, and we can't save the world. But every one of those people is so important.
Yeah.
I know how important Regan was and is to me and to so many other people, and how saving him would have changed all of our lives, and how if one person hears you and it makes a difference, or one parent hears you and goes home and has a conversation with their kids and says, how was your day, and actually hears them.
That's so important, that, because my next question was, is there any advice out there to people that a parent that may be struggling with a son or daughter that maybe having those suicidal thoughts or struggling with mental illness? Is there any advice to those parents, or even to the kids or the young people in that headspace? If you could say those words to Regan, I guess, and I'm sure you still talk to him now. What would those words of advice, I guess, be? Like what you said there.
Yeah, I think to parents it is about listening. Listening is so important, and as parents we don't ever want to think our kids are struggling or not doing well, or it's hard to hear that. We want everything to be okay for our kids, because that's what we do as parents. So the hardest thing is when your child comes to you and says, I'm not okay, and it opens a massive can of worms and we just want to fix it. But we need to listen to them. Because what they're saying is valid, and it takes so much courage for them to talk to you. But it's about creating an environment where they feel comfortable and where they can speak to you without feeling judged or any of those things, because they're our kids.
That's such an important point, I think. Having that environment at home where you can talk about those things. And I'm so big on when you ask the question, like we have, are you okay day? It's on my birthday, but we ask the question, are you okay? But I think we need to know how to deal with those answers. Because people are going to start, now that the awareness is out there, that the negative social stigma's starting to be removed, people are going to start answering those questions. But I don't think as a society we know how to answer those questions. But like what you said there, sometimes there is no answer, and you don't need to answer the questions. What did you say? You just need to listen. And I was guilty of that years ago. I'd never listened. I thought I knew everything. I was a bull at a gate, and you close your mind off. And do you think it's a hard thing for parents to do with all the external factors? You got mortgage, you got food on the table, you got jobs and all that, and sometimes your child might have those little signs, those little red flags or things like that, but they get dismissed, or we may not see them because we're not looking for them. How important is listening?
It's more important than anything, I think. And I'm a big one for it, because we want to fix it, so we keep talking. Because we just want to fix it. And to sit back and be quiet and just hear what they have to say is hard. It is hard, but it's necessary, and it's so helpful for them. It's so healing for them to be able to do that.
Because you said that talking about it has been one of your biggest, strategies or coping strategies in the tragedy. But if you didn't have someone to listen, what good is it in talking? So we want to promote people to talk about it and things like that, and talk about their struggles. So, but if you're the person that's not struggling with a mental health issue or a mental illness or contemplating suicide, you just need to listen. You need to be attentive ears to that person that needs to talk. It's a great point. So from the 26th of January 2015, your life is never going to be the same. Has the rugby league environment or the rugby league world been supportive? What happened there following Regan's passing?
I have had massive support from his mates who play rugby league. I'm lucky. I am so lucky. I have amazing, the guys that Regan was mates with are amazing. There's such a good support to me, and, sending me Mother's Day messages and all those things. It's amazing.
What about the obviously the Cowboys? Was there any support there?
No, they came and brought Regan's things to me in Mackay from Townsville, and brought the boys down for Regan's funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if we're not focusing so much on the problem? Let's focus on the solution. What do you think's something that an NRL club or just a rugby league club or a sporting club? What's some things that they can put in place, do you think, to minimise this or try and stop this from happening?
I think there's lots of things that can happen. I think
what would you expect? Yeah. For you?
So I think having people in a welfare role who are maybe trained in helping the boys and giving them advice and that sort of thing, being engaged with the boys, spending time with them, having a chat, having a coffee with them, that
creating
sort of
that environment,
creating a safe space where they feel that they can come and speak, if they are having issues. I think that's a massive thing. I just think it's about having that connection, that personal connection, and the boys feeling like people and that they're important is really...
Is a young player out there or a young person out there that has been having suicidal thoughts or struggling with them, what would you say to them?
I would say, please, talk to somebody. You think it's hard to open up and talk about these things, but it's amazing how freeing it can be, and how once you start talking about what's going on with you, your feelings and things like that, you quite often find that there's other people who have had exactly the same thoughts, feelings or fears, and I think that's really important, and that it's okay. It's okay. And, it's about, if my phone rang at 3 o'clock in the morning and it was somebody on the other end of the phone saying to me, I'm struggling.
Dark thoughts,
Yeah. You would always answer the phone, sit, chat, listen, whatever it is that you need to do. And I think, they need to realise that they would do the same thing for their mate. And so, of course, if it was them having the problems, that their mates would listen.
And they're the times, like, I hear people, it's the brotherhood and things like that. But this type of stuff, I guess the environments that people have out there, their friendship circles, they need to create. If they want to make a change in this space, they need to create that environment, do you think, where instead of, you'll be right, get over it, or what do you got to be depressed about, or things like that?
Yes.
Do this, listen, and create that environment. Do you think that would help the younger generation and things like that as well?
Definitely. It's not about what you have, and it's not about who people see you to be. People looked at Regan and thought he had everything. He was big and blonde and good looking and making the teams, and he was academic, he was smart, he was popular, he was all of those things, but he still suffered a mental illness. So I think that's really important, is that people understand that this can affect anyone. This, and the boys need to understand. I know how close Regan's mates are now. I know how they are about talking, and they are so much more aware of feelings and what's going on. And I just think this harden up mentality, that it surrounds these is just so archaic. It's I think people who live by that really need to be educated, because it's...
With Regan, was he obviously he was popular, he's outgoing and stuff like that. Did he talk much about his feelings and what was going on with and things like with, you said, all those pressures he put on himself and stuff like that? Did he verbalise that much or talk about that much, or not really?
Oh, there were glimpses of it. Regan was a very soft person. He was, people talk about him now and they'll say, I'm so glad I got to see that side of him, because there was that footy player Regan who was very confident and, but Regan had a very soft side. He was a very loving person. He was, he was a bit of a mummy's boy.
After seeing, my wife and our son, only 3 weeks old, I can see why boys are mummy's boys, because from day dot they're self-reliant and it's so true. So as a young man, and because it's all about what we can draw out of your experiences and stories to give to other people, and like what you said, is creating that environment to feel like people can talk about it. But if you are struggling out there and you are having those thoughts and those dark thoughts, young men in particular, it's so hard to verbalise and talk about it. I've been there. Like, how are you supposed to explain something to someone else when you don't understand it yourself?
Yes.
But it's so important. I think the biggest thing out of this is making sure people know that they need to talk about it.
Yes.
If you're having these thoughts and these feelings, putting them to the back of your mind and sweeping them under the carpet, it can manifest, can't it?
Of course. The best way to deal with this is to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, by doing that and putting it to the back and saying, I'll be right, you're not dealing with anything, and it's still going to be there. It's not just going to go away. Yeah. So, you know, talking about this and dealing with these things is so important. You know, it's okay to have feelings. Yeah. We all have feelings, and it's okay.
Yeah. No, totally agree. And you said before about his mates, they've become more aware of their feelings. They're more aware of mental health, mental illness. How's it impacted or changed their lives?
I think it's been massive for them.
Because you still stay in touch with a lot of them.
Yeah.
They still message you for Mother's Day and things like that.
Always. And I'm so lucky, you know. I get calls for lunches and dinners and all sorts of things, you know. And I also still get messages that say, I just miss him. So I know that it has really affected them. Yeah. And but I think it's made them, you know, he'll never be forgotten by them. Yeah. And I think it's really made them aware and really made them close. And I don't even know how to say it. They've just become such a close-knit group. And so, I think they spread that to other people as well.
A lot of times in life when there's grave tragedy, couples can split up, friendships can disappear because it's a constant reminder of it.
Yes.
But it sounds like they've done the opposite and they've actually gotten tighter.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's a real positive because his death wasn't in vain.
That's right.
And I've said before, it's a credit to you that you can come and share this and stuff like this, because if you didn't share this and we didn't get to give it to our viewers or the people out there, they're not going to know.
That's right.
We were talking about before, how can you crucify someone or go off at someone if they're doing something but they don't know any different?
That's right.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm so on the power of story and lived experience and the impact that can have on people's lives. So moving forward, I guess you want to leave that legacy for Regan. Is there what ideas or things because it's obviously still very recent, but have you thought of anything or that you'd like to do to leave that legacy or to continue to help others?
Yeah, I think you know, we all love talking about our kids. That's what we do as parents, and I love talking about Regan because he was my child. And I think moving forward, it's about, you know, I can only tell my story because this is my story. This is not something that you ever expect to happen to you. This is not something that you can prepare for. This is not, this is just what it is. And I think moving forward, it's about educating people. I want people to know Regan because he was my child, and I want them to know how amazing he was, and that this can affect anyone.
Yeah. So you think, and I'm big on this, education, the power of story, sharing lived experience, but education. Do you think society at the moment is on the right track in this space, or do you think we're still at the awareness stage, or what's your take on the whole society and mental health and mental illness?
Yeah, I think it's getting better. I think we are talking about it more. I think there's more out there about it, but we could definitely, there's a long way to go. Yeah. And I think by us talking about this, by you doing what you're doing, I think it will help. It's the ripple effect. You know, if one person starts talking about it, you start talking and it just gets bigger and it gets bigger. And I think that's what what will happen?
Yep.
The more people talk about it, the more people have to take notice.
Yep.
You know, this is a serious issue. We talk about, you know, when Regan was injured and had his moon boot on, everyone was like, oh, you know, what's happened? When are you back? How long are you out for? That was the, you know, focus. But when it's your mind, it's different.
Well, I use the example of if someone came in here on crutches with a cast on their leg, if this was a full room, everyone would be like, what happened?
Yeah.
How's your leg? How'd you do that?
Yes.
Is there anything I can do to help
Yep.
you? They'd even probably get a texter and sign your cast.
Yep, exactly.
But if we come in here and say, struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety, I've had suicidal thoughts, a lot of people don't know how to deal with that.
That's right.
And that's not their fault because they haven't been educated on it, or they haven't been put in that situation.
That's right.
So like what you said, the best thing we can do is educate. Have scenarios where someone comes in and says, I'm struggling with depression, I've had suicidal thoughts. Why role play those things?
Yes.
It's not promoting it. It's I think it's putting things in place to create those environments where we can talk about it.
Definitely.
Because my goal at the end of the day, and I had a guest on here, Monica, is around creating that environment when you're in that headspace you can go to.
Yes.
And I think that creating that in your own homes and things like that, your own friendship circles, schools and stuff like that.
Yes.
Do you think, is it going to be a holistic approach, or do you think it's mainly we need to focus in schools, or we need to focus in sporting clubs, or do you think it's everywhere? Because I think parents need to be educated as well. A lot of the times I go to schools and I'll do my presentations, but then they'll go home to that environment, and I've come from a tough environment. Every environment's different.
Yes.
I think we need to educate the home environment as well.
I totally agree with you. I think children are receptive to this. They want to know. They want to learn. They haven't been taught to push it into the background. We don't talk about this. We were brought up that way.
Because this is a different generation.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think when Regan first passed away, my focus was we need to help these kids. We just need to do something. This can't happen.
Well, I remember that's exactly what you said when we're up there.
Exactly. And I think as time's gone on, you know, it's sort of evolving where I'm thinking, well, maybe it's parents I need to speak to. Maybe it's the parents, because we don't know how to deal with this. We don't know how to talk about this because we were never allowed to. It was never spoken about.
Do you believe the saying in kids are a product of their environment?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's, and that's where, how do you create that environment where someone can come and talk to you when you didn't come from an environment like that?
That's right.
So the only way you're going to find out how to do that is by education.
That's right. And
by having someone like yourself getting out there and sharing that lived experience. It's definitely a must. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, from Mental Health Movement, for coming and sharing your very powerful story, sharing Regan's life. It's so important to leave a legacy, and I'm really looking forward to myself and you working together in the future, because you do have that powerful story, and we're not going to leave Regan's life in vain. We're going to continue doing things, getting that word out there, because we've heard it from the lived experience, the things that we need to do, the things that we need to put in place. And I know that Mental Health Movement are going to continue to do that. But as viewers, please have taken the pieces out of this that were relevant, those attributes, those changes that need to be made. It's so important. So I just want to thank you, Angela, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much. And to all my viewers, it's a very powerful episode. It's something that I think I've enjoyed. Obviously not the circumstances in which we're talking about, but the fact that what I'm doing and created here is able to give you that environment to share and talk about it. It's something very special. Is there anything else you want to add or say before we wrap it up? Or?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for what you're doing, because what you're doing is amazing, and this is what's needed. This is what we need to do. We need to talk about this, you know, and if you're a parent, go home and give your kids a cuddle and tell them you love them.
No. It's just the simple thing. Sometimes we get consumed by society and other things going on.
We definitely do, and I think it's about, the only things that are important to me now, since losing Regan, are the moments in life.
Yeah.
They're what's important. It's your kids are going to remember laughing on the couch. They don't care how much the couch cost.
Yeah.
But they will remember if they laughed on it.
That's
and the
so
good
true.
times they had.
Yeah.
And that's what I have now. And I'm so lucky because I have amazing memories with Regan.
Yeah. That's that mindset, that perception, because perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
You change your perception, you can change your reality.
Definitely.
And you're living, breathing proof of that. So thank you, Angela. And thank you to all my viewers. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. And until next time, always remember, the mind matters.